everybody. It's another Sunday and it's exciting to be here with you again. Welcome to GH Gospel Radio, and this is your show, Let's Talk Marriage, with your girl, Dr. EFUA ADU-GYAMFI. It's exciting to have this opportunity to talk everything marriage. And like you saw on the header, the topic for tonight is dealing with a difficult spouse or dealing with difficult spouses. Last week, we learned a little bit about temperament, the different temperaments, their weaknesses, and their strengths. And it sort of ties into tonight's discussion because due to people's temperaments and their social and cultural backgrounds and the conditions surrounding their upbringing, some people end up becoming difficult to deal with. And when we say that a spouse is difficult to deal with, it means that that spouse has become somebody who has unhealthy ideas about marriage or has developed some unhealthy character traits that is not good for the partner. And I like to differentiate difficult spouses into two different categories. There's one set of spouse who have like bad habits because they grew up in a difficult social or cultural background. And those people, I like to refer to them as broken people or broken spouses. And later on, I would explain what makes some of the things that makes a person broken. The other group of people are toxic or abusive spouses. And they can be abusive people in general, or they can be abusive only in marriage. And what differentiates abusive or toxic spouses from broken spouses is that even though these kind of people had difficult circumstances during their upbringing, they have developed a character trait that uses other bad habits to cover their deficiencies. And what makes them toxic is that they know what they're doing is bad, but they pretend. And it's like instead of fixing whatever may be the problem with them, they instead try to justify whatever they're doing. And then they'll blame their spouse or blame their family, their immediate family. And what makes it obvious that they know what they are doing is that they don't do that to everybody else. They treat everybody else nicely. So everybody knows that, oh, these people are good people, these people are caring and all those kind of things. But when they go home to their spouses, they treat their spouses very badly. And the difference between a broken spouse and a toxic or abusive spouse is that with a broken person or the broken spouse, they have bad habits that in a sense, they know it's wrong, but it's difficult for them to stop. It's like a weakness that has unnecessarily taken hold of their lives, a weakness that is rather in them having control over it. And with the toxic spouses, they know what they are doing and they hide it when other people are around. So the only difference is one group of one group of difficult spouse, they know what they're doing is wrong. They're trying to overcome it. The other group, they know what they're doing is wrong, but they are intentionally defending it and making it look like they are right. And instead of changing, they would rather want everybody around them to change. So they sort of hide it in a very clever way so that they are able to cheat their spouses or make their spouses suffer for it. If you're dealing with a toxic spouse, you yourself, you become broken in the end. You yourself, you lose your self-confidence. You become a shadow of yourself. Your reality is messed up. And this can be anywhere from a few or abusive habits all the way to what psychologists call narcissism. Narcissism is a broad topic, and it will be good that if you're interested, you go online, you Google it, you read more about it. but that's what it is. An abusive spouse know that what they are doing to you is wrong, but instead of changing, they would rather defend what they are doing and force you to undergo whatever treatment they're giving you. A broken spouse is doing the wrong thing, but it's because they are unable to stop the bad habits by themselves. And such people are ready for change, and sometimes they may be holding off on getting help. But these people know that there's something wrong. They are open to getting help. And with the appropriate help, these people are more able to fix whatever is happening to them. It's not a walk in the park. It may be difficult to get over their hurdles, but at least they accept that there's something wrong. They have a deficiency somewhere. And with these kind of people, they are more apologetic, even though whatever they are doing is hurting their marriage or hurting their partners. They are more apologetic and they do not justify what they do. It's just that they are working on it. They are not there yet. They might be lazy or forgetful or refuse to work on their issues, but for sure, they know they have issues. Yeah. So before we go on, we're going to read our Bible verses for today, just to give us a basis of how to anchor ourselves when or if you're dealing with a difficult spouse. And the Bible verses are from Jeremiah 17, verse 5 to 8. Jeremiah 17, verse 5 to 8. And I'm reading from the Amplified Version. It says that, "Thus says the Lord, cursed is the man who trusts and relies on mankind, making weak, faulty human flesh his strength, and whose mind and heart turn away from the Lord. For he will be like a shrub in the parched desert, and shall not see prosperity when it comes, but shall live in the rocky places of the wilderness, in an uninhabited salt land. Blessed with spiritual security is the man who believes and trusts and relies on the Lord, and whose hope and confident expectation is the Lord. For he will be nourished like a tree planted by the waters, that spreads out its roots by the river, and fear when it comes, but its leaves will be green and moist, and it will not be anxious and concerned in a year of drought, nor stop bearing fruit." Amen. And another verse I would also like us to look at is Isaiah 26, verse 4, and this is from the NIV version. It says that, "Trust in the Lord forever, for the Lord himself is the rock eternal." Why am I reading these verses? If you're dealing with a difficult spouse, if you're dealing with a broken or toxic or abusive spouse, the problem is that you're already married. And at that time, you may even have children. And it's not easy to just pick up your bags and say you're leaving a marriage. It is therefore important that you keep God as your rock. A lot of times when women get married, we like to rely on our partners a lot. Women like a sense of family. We like to belong. We like to mesh together as one unit. Men can be more independent and have a life of their own. But with the women, most of the time, we just want to do everything together. We want to depend on our partners so much. If you're dealing with a difficult spouse and you rely too much on your spouse, it's going to end up in a very serious situation, because when you're dealing with a difficult spouse, you need to be strong enough for the both of you for a lot of times. You need to be strong enough to help your partner through whatever they may be dealing with, and especially for broken spouses who may need to get some therapy or something, you need to be able to support. So are depending so heavily on them, it will be very difficult for you to now be the one to support them. So in life and in marriage, it's important that you are able to trust in God more than you trust in your partner. Don't make your partner your God. Don't rely heavily on your partner. Rely more on God, so that in case when you are not able to get so much support from your partner, you're able to support yourself and you're able to support your partner as well, so that in the end, you are a big help to your partner instead of your partner dragging you down with them. So, having talked about the two different kinds of difficult spouses, that is a broken spouse or the toxic spouse, let's look at a few that can make anybody broken. Some of the things that could happen in a person's childhood that could end up making the person broken or toxic. And at this point, it's very important to state that not everybody who goes through these kinds of experiences while growing up end up broken or toxic. In fact, there are some people that they may be going through these conditions, but they may have some other person in their life growing up who makes up for everything that they missed. So they could turn up very normal. On the other hand, you could have people with or siblings with two different temperaments. Some temperaments are able to withstand certain situations than others. So you realize that, for example, two siblings, they both had a drunkard for a father. One may become a drunkard. It doesn't always end up that way. One may become a drunkard, the other one may hate alcohol, and the other one may just be indifferent towards alcohol. The temperament that a person is born with affects how the social and cultural aspect of their environment affects them. So we are not saying that if any of these things happen to anybody, automatically they are going to end up as broken or toxic spouses. But some of these things are pointers that can point out the fact that, oh, these are the things that is making this person difficult to deal with. And also, we should all remember that every marriage has issues. Two normal, healthy people in a marriage will still have issues, will still have challenges. But when you have a difficult spouse, have extra challenges, such that one person may have to be strong enough to cover the both of you, or both of you may come with challenges. If both of you are broken, it's a difficult situation. But that would mean that you have to take turns supporting each other so that you don't wreck the marriage. Because sometimes it happens like that. Both of you may be broken, both of you may be toxic. Whatever it is, with God on your side and with the willingness to work through it. And sometimes you may not even be able to work through it by yourself. You need to get some professional help. So let's look at some of the things that could end up making a spouse broken or toxic. Okay, the first one is physical abuse. For those of us from Africa, we know that even in America, some people believe in there's a difference between spanking and physical abuse. With physical abuse, usually there's excessive beatings for no reason and beating to the extent of causing damage to the children. There have been cases where people are sent to be house help, typically in African communities or somewhere else. There's been children who have been trafficked all over the world, or children who have lived with other families apart from their own. Some people have been in foster care and have been through some difficult situations where they were physically abused. So it's not that they were just spanked for the wrong thing or to correct them, but they've been through some severe physical abuse. And some of these people end up with scars for life. Even when they're old and married, they are difficult to deal with in a marriage. Some of these things affect them emotionally. So they come to the marriage with extra baggage. That is not the normal everyday baggage that two healthy people come into a marriage with. This one is extra baggage that you may have to find help in dealing with. The other one is sexual abuse or rape, especially to females. Rape can happen to males as well. When rape happens to males, it's like an older person may coerce a child and take advantage of them and use them sexually. And the same thing might happen to females. It's more common to find out what happened to females because a lot of times it's the females who may talk about it or bring it up sometime in their life. A lot of times the males don't talk about it, so you don't really know much about what happens to the males. But male children, female children also, both male and female, that's what I mean. Both male and female can be sexually abused. And sexual abuse has a lot of far-reaching consequences. In fact, for most women, if they were sexually abused, they find it very hard to enjoy sex in marriage. And some of them have gone to the extent of being so anxious about it that it heavily affects the marriage. There are some women that cannot be, they cannot accept to be touched, even in a marriage. And imagine somebody that you're married to, that you have a certificate to have a sexual relationship with, and then they have all these pain and holdups about sex. Getting through that is very difficult. Sometimes they are able to get over it on their own, maybe due to their temperament, but a lot of times it causes problems in their marriage. The same for the men. So when somebody has been sexually abused as a child, it can make them broken. It can cause problems in the marriage. They will have all sorts of, they could have all sorts of hang-ups around sex, which would eventually affect the marriage. Another thing too is negligent or absent parent. It's not everybody who is born a home that both parents are available and attentive to their needs. There are some people that at the time that they were born, either the parents were busy, one parent had to travel, and therefore they were absent, and then the children were left with somebody else, and they didn't really get parental love and attention. This can really affect the child. It may be difficult for them to bond with a parent later on, and they can carry this into marriage in the sense that the children that they are raising, they find it difficult to bond with them because they don't really know what it means to be a parent. Many of us learn how to be a parent from how our parents treated us when we're growing up. But if for somebody who hasn't had that experience, who hasn't had somebody raise them and teach them and love them unconditionally, everybody is quirky, or everybody is stubborn in their own way. But when you have two parents who care about you, you can be the most stubborn person in the world, but your parent, at least your parent, would unconditionally love you or teach you or help you along the way. Mistakes can be made, but if you didn't have that parental attention in the first place, then you realize that you are missing a lot. Like we said earlier, for some people, somebody else is able to step in. Let's say grandparents. Both male and female grandparents are able to take them in, give them a stable home so that they don't grow up with any deficit. But for those who are tossed back and forth because their parents are not around, or because the parents are not able to be in lives, maybe doing some business, they're always away on a trip, they hardly see their children, they don't get that connection. There's this popular theory, it's called the attachment theory. Because the child is not able to form this special bond with their parent, knowing that this parent is available and this parent loves them unconditionally, they end up growing with some deficits that they are unable to trust their partner completely, because in their mind or subconsciously, the people they love are not reliable, or they are not there for them, or they cannot depend on them. So if you are married to such a person, it will be hard for such a person to trust you or to form like a bond with you and be able to share with you in a normal way. They may be very anxious. Whenever you try to be close, share your secrets, have this intimate relationship with them, they may be drawing back. They would not open up to you, and that can cause issues in the marriage. It builds a lot of mistrust, and it builds a lot of third party feeling. It's as if you're married, but your partner does not want to open up to you. You're married, but your partner is not fully there. They are holding back. Part of themselves is not available to you, and many of them may be emotionally unavailable because they cannot trust you with their heart. They've never been able to trust somebody with their heart, so it's difficult for them to do it in the marriage. So those who have negligent or absent parents, for whatever reason, some of them can develop difficult attachment or anxious attachment styles, which make it difficult for them to be able to trust you, bond with you, and make a team with you when they are married later on in life. A third thing is addicted parents, with children who are born to drug addicts like alcohol, cocaine, and stuff like that. The parents are not even present mentally or emotionally in the home. They may be physically present, but they are not really being parented much. In some cases, it's even the children who take care of the parents. For somebody who grows up like this, it may be difficult for them to be able to bond with a partner. So if you are married to somebody who had an alcoholic parent, the parents might have been physically present, but they never really got the essence of the parent, because if a parent is drunk, they are not able to teach you much. They are not able to be present with you as a normal father or mother. They may be there, but their effect in your life will be some kind of unhealthy. So if you're married to such a person that had addicted parents, they have all kinds of issues. Some of them, because of their addictions, they are negligent. Because of their addictions, they may be absent. Because of their addictions, they may be abusive. And because of their addictions, they could cause extreme poverty in the home. So that is one thing to look out for. And like we keep saying, it's not everybody who is born to an addicted parent or any parent with any of these deficiencies become deficient. Some become deficient, some do not, especially when they have other parental figures in their life who make up for whatever they lack. Another thing that can affect a spouse is being orphaned as a child. If somebody grew up as an orphan, it goes back to absent parents. For one reason or another, if a person is orphaned as a child, the parents may not be available, unless maybe of course the parents are not available, but unless maybe somebody takes them in and they see a family, like a male figure, a female figure, mother figure, father figure in their lives. Sometimes they grow up with deficits. It's hard for them to picture family. So it's hard for them to be a family with you. You'd have to support them, get some help. Yes. Another thing is only children. Some only children grow to be like a little bit antisocial or a little bit entitled because it was just them. So everything came to them. And a lot of times when there's an only child, their parents are their friends. And there's no other sibling to socialize with and to learn stuff from and to bond with. Yeah, they are often bonding with their parents. And so it's like they mature very quickly, they do adult stuff. They're not able to come to the level of their peers like everybody else because there was nobody there that they were bonding with and learning some of these things from. Some only children have the advantage of living with an auntie or like an uncle who has children, or the parents could even to live in the home with them. So even though they're only children, they will not have this deficiency. But for some only children who grew up by themselves, it's difficult for them to have other people in their space. So later on, when they get married, it's hard for them to accept other people in their lives. We're not saying that every only child has a deficiency. We're saying that sometimes being an only child can affect you in your marriage, especially when you did not have the privilege of growing up with other children in your home that you socialized with and learned from. If you are living with your parents by yourself, you might end up being a little bit difficult to live with because you may have some kind of hang-ups. Okay, so the last group of people I'd like to mention is children sick parents. And when I say sick parents, I'm referring to maybe somebody who had parents who, or one parent who was mentally ill, or one parent who had a long-term chronic illness that they had to focus on. You know, with long-term illnesses and illnesses that require a lot of attention, a lot of money, and a lot of care, it may take away a little bit from the attention that the children get in the home. And it's not the fault of the children, but it does affect the dynamics in the home. And sometimes as a child, they may even be required to take care of their parents. Imagine having a parent who is mentally ill. There will be times that you, the child, may even have to step in to take care of the adult instead of you being taken care of. It's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. It's just life, that life threw a curveball at you, but it doesn't go without scars. You may develop some kind of deficit because you had a parent who was chronically ill and you had to step in to help care for them. Okay, so I'm just going to go through some of the things just to give you an idea of some of the things that could happen or some of the effects that could happen from these things that we have listed. So this is more of some of the things that show that a spouse or somebody had a traumatic childhood. It is found that a lot of street workers had childhood because they came from a broken home or because they are broken, they become sex workers. And then street children coming from a broken home, a lot of people just run away, let's say from a negligent family or a negligent parent. They don't even notice when their children are gone. They could become street children. And then also for those who were abused as children, I'm not saying this is the cause of homosexuality, but some people who end up that way, there's been a history, for some of them, there's been a history of abuse by a male as a child. That's one aspect of it. We're not going to delve deeper, but it is known that one aspect of it could be from abuse, sexual abuse by during childhood. And like we said earlier, some of them end up as narcissists, like people who know that they're doing evil to their partners, who become abusive to their partners, not because they don't know what they're doing is wrong. They are fully aware of what they're doing to their spouses, but they do it in order to cover whatever deficiencies that they have. And they're able to get away with it a lot of times because they know when to be mean and they know when to be nice. And then they vary this nicely so that they can keep it going for as long as possible. And we said earlier that it could be just a few bad habits or all the way full-blown narcissism. So if you're interested in it, Google it, go read some more. If you have questions, we could talk about it some other time. And then also, having a traumatic childhood could even develop mental health issues in you yourself. You could end up with depression, you could end up with anxiety, and all kinds of things. Anxiety and depression have all kinds of different causes, but a traumatic childhood could be part of the cause, or could be something that precipitates it, makes it manifest faster. Okay. The last part is that coming from a broken home or a traumatic background, or like a troubled childhood, can make you have self-esteem issues. And with self-esteem issues, there are people who are egotistic. That is, they feel better than everybody. That's a problem. And there are people who have low self-esteem, that they feel like they are not worth anything. They are worse than everybody. All of these things are part of the effects of coming from a broken background. So what this should tell us is that parenting is a serious issue. And many people who are married choose to have children. And it's therefore important that as a married person, you take your relationship with your partner seriously so that you can create a stable home for your children to grow in. And also, you're able to raise your children right. The Bible says that train up a child the way they should go, that when they grow up, they will not depart it. Stable family home is very, very important for every individual. It's not just having their needs met, even though children having their needs met is very important. It's not only that physical need, it's not the only thing that a child needs. They have emotional needs as well. And being present in the life of your children is very important to help you avoid all these things later on in life. That as you've raised your child, one day they will not become a difficult person to deal with for their own spouses. So it's important that we pray and we allow the Holy Spirit to help us to have stable homes so that we can raise our children right, and then they will not end up with any difficulty in their marriages. So what are some of the practical steps to deal with a broken spouse? And for this one, we have already grouped them into two, right? We already said that a difficult spouse can be either a broken spouse or a toxic spouse. So let's talk about dealing with a broken spouse. So difficult spouse category, broken spouse. And we already defined it as somebody who has unhealthy ideas about marriage or some character traits that are harmful to the marriage. But these group of people know that they have deficiencies. They are fully aware of it, and they are ready for change. Being ready for change doesn't mean that change would happen automatically. And being ready for change doesn't mean that they're diligent to see it through. There may be roadblocks, there may be times that the going gets difficult, but having somebody who is ready to work on their deficiencies is a lot of the work, is almost like half of the work is already done. But you still need to work with such a spouse. And we said already that the first thing to do is to make God your source, or to keep God as your spouse. Don't go into marriage expecting that your partner will carry you. Don't make your partner your God. Keep God as your source. Keep God as your rock, so that when issues come up in marriage, there is somewhere to run. And when the going gets tough, you'll not be waiting on your partner. You would rather go to God for help, so that you are also able to support you. So the first thing, keep God as your source. Be secure by yourself, so that you can help your spouse. The next thing to do is that even as you're praying for yourself, you need to pray for your spouse. As Christians, we understand that whatever change that needs to happen, it is God who is going to make it happen. So it is important that you pray for your spouse, so that God will speak to their hearts, or God will show you what you need to do and give you the strength to be able to help them in a way that would also aid their healing, or help them to get to the place where they need to be. So keep God as your source and pray for your spouse. The third thing is that you need to show them compassion. Let me give an example of somebody who was sexually molested as a child.
What are you having?
I'm having a meeting.
And then we'll go to Houston?
Yes, sure.
After you finish?
Yes, after I finish.
After she finishes?
Yes, you need to show such a person compassion. So for the spouse who is unable to be sexually active or sexually normal in quotes because of childhood molestation, it can be very, very frustrating. So as an example, you as a spouse need to have compassion on such a person. You need to be able to have understanding. The days that you are denied your marital rights, instead of getting angry, instead of being frustrated, you need to be their rock. And whatever therapy, and you need to encourage them in therapy. For a lot of people, when they start working with therapists, they are able to gradually overcome much of the harm that was done to them as children, to the point where they are able to have a satisfying sex life. And this is not an easy feat. I read a story of a lady who decided never to get married because she was molested as a child. And because of that, she never dated anybody. But finally, she fell in love. And when the guy proposed to her, she told the guy, "This is what happened to me in my childhood. And because of that, I don't want to be with anybody." But the guy agreed to go along with the marriage and was very supportive. But down the line, there was this heavy struggle to overcome it, because their sex life was very frustrating. It got to a point where they wanted, she wanted to give up because she saw that the guy was suffering, and the guy was also tired because they had gone through therapy for a long time, but the problem wasn't getting solved quickly. It was taking them a long time. This guy persisted, and they were able to go through thick and thin. So eventually the issue was resolved to a place where they could have a satisfying sex life. They were able to have their children, 3 children, and their marriage was saved. It takes compassion and it takes a lot of strength to be able to help a partner who is going through issues to be able to overcome it. It takes a lot of patience as well. And let's say you're dealing with a spouse who is addicted, let's say, to alcohol or to task. It's not going to be an easy feat. It's easy to give up because addictions are no joke. You can't just wake up one day and the addiction is gone. Or the fact that this person knows that they're addicted to something and they want to stop. That alone does not take away the addiction. And sometimes when you are born again, your born again experience may take away your addiction, and that is a blessing. But other times it doesn't happen that way. You're a Christian, but you're still addicted to something. It takes a supportive spouse to be able to support you to get help and be patient with you whilst you are getting help, to have compassion on you when you are in your weak moments, so that they are not insulting you with your weaknesses, but they are supporting you. Somebody could have mental illness, and mental illness can take a toll on a marriage. If you don't have passion, you will not be able to support such a one. So the third thing to do when you're dealing with a broken spouse is to have compassion. Have compassion on your spouse, to stand by them through thick and thin, to the point where they can get their breakthrough and become a better spouse from what they are used to. The other thing is that you need to do your research. You need to find out things that you can do to help. And with every problem, by finding solutions and finding solutions that work for your particular situation, that is where the breakthrough comes. And sometimes you may have to set aside resources. And sometimes, because of limited resources, you may have to narrow it down to the one that you can afford, the one that will work for you, the one that you can stick to. Once you have identified there's a problem, once the other partner, the partner with the issue, is ready to work on it, it does not automatically solve the issue. You need to do your research. You need to find help, and you need to find the right kind of help. The fact that there's a problem does not mean that any solution at all will work. You need to be able to find help for your partner or with your partner and support them through it. The third thing is that you need to engage them at the point of their commitment. What that means is that when you're dealing with adults, if they themselves are not ready, it's difficult to force an adult. An adult or your spouse may know that they have an issue, they have a deficiency, but if they themselves are not ready to work on it, it'll be difficult to move forward. And you, the partner without an issue, you may find yourself in a position where you are impatient for them to get over whatever they are dealing with. So if you're not careful, you may be pushing them to get help quickly. You may be pushing them to get up and whatever recommendations that you have both researched, you may be pushing them to hurry up and get over it. That is not the way to go. The person with the issue needs to come to the point of wanting healing for themselves, wanting to be able to get rid of whatever brokenness they are dealing with. You cannot force somebody to get help. You can only support them to get help. So until they are ready, you cannot make them get help. And most of the time, the partners see them as a failure if they are not able to push the partner with a problem to get help. But you see, when God gave us Jesus Christ, He never forced us to accept Jesus Christ. And He didn't give us a timeline to accept Jesus Christ. He waits patiently for us to get to the point where we decide that we are ready. In the same way, there's no way you can force a partner to get help. You just have to work with them on the way. You can motivate them. You can encourage them, but you cannot force them in their healing journey. Whatever you force on somebody, you would have to maintain it by yourself. But when it comes from their own will, it's easier for them to stick with it. Your job is to motivate them. And sometimes you may feel bad or you may feel guilty that it's your fault that they haven't healed yet, or it's your fault that they haven't made as much progress as they need to make. It's important that you remember that it's not your responsibility. You don't have to own their problem. You are a part of them. You both are a team. That is true. But still, they are individuals. So if they are unwilling to work hard on whatever is affecting them or making them broken, don't take on the guilt. Free yourself from that guilt. It's not your fault, and you can't make them do anything. It's just they themselves being ready and deciding to go at their own pace. So you need to protect your own mental health so that you don't take on unnecessary guilt for something that your partner is working through. Your bet is to support them in prayer. If they need to go for appointments, you need to go with them. You can remind them to do whatever exercises they are supposed to do, or take whatever medication they are supposed to take, or take whatever course, whatever, however you can help them. You should be able to help, but you can never do it for them. It has to come from them. They themselves have to own their health and be able to work on whatever needs to be worked on. You can only support, encourage, and motivate. You cannot take over and do it for them. It does not work that way. And you should not feel guilty that it's your fault, because it's not. You are an individual as well. And the other thing is that you may need to get professional help. A lot of times, some of these issues are deep seated, because to the extent that they are affecting your marriage, and to the extent that the partner themselves may be looking for help, it might mean that they've tried in the past to do it on their own and it hasn't worked. So it's important that you don't see professional help as being unchristian. Professional help is very much Christian. So whenever you get to a point where you think it's too much for you to handle, or your partner also sees it as too much to handle, it's important that you get professional help, not just any help. The other thing is that when you're dealing with a difficult spouse, the broken category, those who know they need help and are willing to accept help, sometimes you may need to protect your children from them. Let's say, for example, you have a spouse who's addicted. You may need to protect your, because sometimes when people get drunk, let's say for somebody who's addicted to alcohol, they may get drunk, come in the house, beat the children, abuse the children. It's important that if they are abusing the children, or the effect of their brokenness is harming the children, it's your job as the other adult in the children's life to protect the children. Do your very best to protect your children. Do not say that, oh, they are their children too, so whatever they are doing, you should know what is extreme. If you've made the decision that you're dealing with a broken spouse, you should know that things are not normal. So don't just be like, oh, they are their children too, so whatever they are doing to them is okay. When you feel the need to protect your children, go ahead and protect your children. The other thing too is that you need to set boundaries for yourself. Let's talk about a spouse. Let's give an example of a spouse who is like, let's say, a womanizer, or like a chronic cheater for a woman. They may realize that they have a problem. They may realize that their actions are affecting the marriage. They may be on the path to changing. They may get professional help. But you yourself, you need to set boundaries. As in, when they go too far, you need to be able to stop them in their tracks. You need to be able to set your own standards as to what you will allow and what you will not allow. Because if you allow them to just do to you whatever they want, you will end up broken and ineffective. And in the case where you have children, your children may not have two healthy parents taking care of them anymore, because the action of one partner is dragging you down. So set boundaries, know what you will deal with and what you will not deal with. And also be able to take care of yourself during the whole process. Sometimes people just put all their energy into helping their spouse or into tolerating their spouse, such that they themselves get harmed in the process, or they themselves end up being like drained. It's important that you take care of yourself whilst you're supporting your partner. If it gets too much, you need to take a break. When you've come to the end of your rope, you need to recharge. So once in a while, you may have to just let their need go unfulfilled once in a while, so that you yourself can recharge, because you don't have limitless energy. You need to take care of yourself as well. Also, you need to allow family members or members of the community who are willing to help you to be able to step in. Let's take, for example, if you're dealing with a spouse who has mental health issues. When they are in crisis, it's important that if the family is willing to help, you let them help as much as possible. And in fact, the family, any good family would support you in these times. But the question is, some people may not even be willing to accept the help. If you try to do stuff all by yourself, that is a fast way to crash. If people are willing to help, your community members are willing to help, allow them to help as much as they can. And especially get the help of their family members to help you. Or if you're dealing with a spouse with chronic illness, allow the family members maybe to be able to take them to their appointments, to be able to take food to them, to be able to visit them and spend time with them, whilst you also come home to relax, or you also take time for yourself, or you also do something for you, so that you also have a healthy lifestyle. Don't kill yourself trying to help your spouse. You should set a limit and allow other people to help you. That may mean that you may not be everything to your spouse, but that's okay, because remember, you are not God. Do the best you can, you yourself getting compromised. Don't sacrifice to the point where it becomes harmful to you or you are losing yourself. Get help, get some limits, set some boundaries, and get professional help, so that all the burden is not on you. You're able to balance things. And if you have children, you need also to leave some space for your children, such that you're able to take good care of your children as the healthier parent, or as the more supportive parent, because the other person is getting help. Now, let's talk about the difficult spouses of the toxic category. We just spoke about dealing with a difficult spouse who is broken, the things that you need to do. When you're dealing with a difficult spouse who is toxic or abusive, that is a whole ball game altogether. A toxic or abusive spouse, like we keep repeating, knows that what they're doing is evil. So they find a way to hide it from outsiders, so that they are able to treat you badly when they are alone with you. And because of that, when you complain to anybody, they won't even believe you. And a lot of people will start giving you cliches. Oh, you need to stay with your spouse. You need to keep the family. People are addicted to happy stories. People are addicted to like a good story. Everybody wants people to keep their marriage. Or for the Christian community, we often want people to stay married. That is not a bad thing. That is a very good thing. But if you're dealing with somebody who knows that what they're doing is evil, who knows that they're breaking your spirit, who intentionally treats you bad when it's just the two of you, or treat your children, you and your children, really bad when it's just the two of you, and then they don't repeat the same thing when they're outside, it means that they are being manipulative. They know what they're doing is evil, but they are hiding it. And for such people, they justify what they're doing. They are not ready to get help. They will defend whatever they are doing when it's between the two of you. And some of the signs or the red flags, as people say, that you're dealing with a difficult spouse of the toxic category or the abusive category is that they will restrict your freedoms unnecessarily. Some of them will tell you when to go out, when to come back home, and they would give you all sorts of rules, and especially rules that they themselves would not follow. They will make sure that you don't spend too much time with your friends. They'll make sure that if you have a career, they'll try to interrupt it or make it difficult for you to work. And they'll start mouthing your friends, trying to bring quarrels between you and your family members. Their goal is to try and drive everybody away from you. Their goal is to destroy your support system, so that finally, when they decide to get rid of you, there'll be nobody to help you. There are some people whose family members are not allowed to visit them. That is a big red flag. It should show you that your spouse is trying to destroy your life. And the funny thing is that with those in the category of the extremist narcissist, they actually derive pleasure. They derive energy from seeing you suffer. They can make rules for you like, I need fresh food every day. Please, I don't mean that anybody who wants fresh food every day is a narcissist. No. I'm just trying to give an example of unreasonable demands that a spouse could be making of you just to break your spirit, just to make you suffer because they enjoy seeing you suffer. And the way that you know that they are doing it on purpose is that they will not do it to anybody else. When they are treating other people, they know what is right and what is wrong, and they will treat other people nicely. In fact, people around you will know them as very good people, very nice people. But when they come home to you, they treat you really bad. They are always making you sad. They are always making negative comments at you. They'll try to compare you to other people. And then when they speak to their friends, when you are not there, they'll say bad things about you. In fact, it's very strange to understand the mindset of abusive people and the fact that they get pleasure from abusing you. If you are dealing with a toxic spouse or an abusive spouse and not a broken one, when you know that your spouse knows what they're doing to you is wrong, but they are still doing it on purpose, don't let anybody convince you to stay. If you are able to leave them, quietly leave them. Or from whatever information that you have, make a decision that is best for you. And if you are not able to leave them, knowing that they are not ready to change is a waste of your time to try to help them to change. In fact, if you confront them, the abuse is going to get worse. So the best thing to do is to find a support system outside of your marriage. Stop challenging them because it will make it worse for you. And then find a good support system. Make healthy friendships outside of your marriage, and also be in touch with your family members. And make sure that there are other things in your life that is giving you healthy interactions, because you know that when you come back home, you cannot speak up. Whatever they say, the best thing for you to do is to just accept it. When you're dealing with toxic spouses, don't defend yourself, don't explain yourself, whatever you do, just accept it, because the more you resist them, the more they will make you suffer. If you are able to leave them, it's up to you. It may be a good decision for you to take, because toxic toxic spouses will not change. And whatever they are doing to you, they don't do it to anybody else. So nobody will even believe you when you say such things to them. You in the marriage know what is going on. Don't let anybody convince you otherwise. When you're dealing with a broken spouse, there may be hope. You can get professional help, and you can support them. But when you are dealing with a toxic or abusive spouse, physically abusive, emotionally abusive, and they try to get your family members away from you, they lie to you, they are always changing their words, don't accept abuse. Your relationship, if your marriage is abusive, it's important that you find a way out, or you decide for yourself, because you know that this is not going to change. So make up your mind what is best for you. Don't stay there and die. A lot of recent issues in the news about people killing their spouses and trying to kill themselves. Most of the time, it did not start in one day. These kind of spouses are abusive. It starts gradually. And then when you try to leave them, they'll just get up one day and kill you. When you're dealing with an abusive spouse, it's important to save your life. They know what they're doing to you is evil, but they'll keep doing it anyway. That is when you know that you cannot save the situation. So use that information to advise yourself. Nothing will change. So advise yourself. Do you want to stay, or do you want to live? Because nothing is going to change. It's only going to get worse. But when you are dealing with a broken spouse, you can get help, you can support them, you can pray for them. When you are dealing with an abusive spouse, nothing will change. So use that information to advise yourself. Our time is up, so that would be it for today. So next week, we are going to talk about the Martha syndrome. And the Martha syndrome is just a term I'm using for women who like to do all kinds of things, to go the extra mile for their families, but they become resentful because of because of all the things that they are doing. Sister Else, no human on earth deserves to be imprisoned emotionally, psychologically, socially, and physically. Sister Elsie, thank you so much for that. So if you know you're in a marriage like that, advise yourself. Don't let anybody convince you to stay. Your life is more important. Yes. So next week we're going to talk about the Martha syndrome. Make a date with us on GH Gospel Radio, 6 p.m. Central Time, and let's have another great discussion. So until we meet again, remember that it takes a good Christian to have a good Christian marriage. God bless you. See you same time next week. Bye-bye.